Take us through your thinking as we watch these world leaders gather for what is supposed to be a celebration, 75 years of the North Atlantic Alliance. But it seems that a number of these leaders come to this event struggling domestically.
Well, it's interesting, as you say, because this NATO meeting being hosted in the US by Joe Biden, on the surface of it, should be a big moment. It should be a moment of sort of stressing those messages of NATO unity, of strength against Russia over Ukraine, strength against a rising China and other threats potentially around the world. And instead, all the focus is going to be potentially on these individual leaders. You were talking quite a bit about Joe Biden a minute ago and the questions about his durability as the candidate and then potentially president of the US for another 4 years, but also Emmanuel Macron coming off the back of the election result on the weekend, where he now has quite a tricky time at home forming a government, dealing with the rise of the left, the rise of the right, and questions about, can he form a coalition government and who his prime minister will be. So all of that is following him to this NATO meeting. Of course, in Germany, Olaf Scholz, recently his party did not fare particularly well in the European parliamentary elections, questions about whether that weakened him at home. In the UK, we've got a new leader, Keir Starmer, who obviously had a very big win in the election here only days ago, but he's still a bit untested on the global stage. It'd be interesting to see how he performs in the minute. And again, he's got a lot of distractions here about his very new government getting underway and all the things he's promising to do very early on, settling in his cabinet and so on. And so you've got all these leaders coming with a lot of distractions at home and a lot of focus on those distractions at home. And the question is, in all of that, what can NATO achieve at this meeting in terms of those border goals?
Yeah, Ros, and we certainly want to get to some of the priorities, the NATO priorities. But on the question of Biden, is he managing to make the case convincingly that he should remain the candidate for the Democrats?
Well, as Critty was saying, he's fanning out everywhere. He's talking with black lawmakers. He's talking with progressive lawmakers. He released that 2-page letter to all Democratic lawmakers. He's popping up on radio. He's going on the road after NATO to a bunch of states, including Michigan, and then over to Texas. So certainly he's very much pressing the narrative that he's capable of remaining president and running as the candidate. But you have to wonder, why does he need to try so hard? Why does there need to be this endless messaging, talking to donors, talking to everybody, reassuring them? Here, doesn't that just also send the message that, yes, the White House is very concerned about whether Joe Biden has the durability as the candidate or the president for another 4 years? So it's really not making that narrative go away. All these conversations where it's just simply about his age and his health, nothing about his agenda, nothing about the state of the economy, nothing about his track record, nothing about what he'd do again if he was president for another 4 years. The only thing people are talking about is his age.